Hello, everybody. We are back. It is Saturday night. Hope you've been having a pleasant weekend. We're back with the second half of this week's BS and a Beer session. And as promised, it is the first time we are going international, and it is to quite an interesting brewery at that. So we're going to slide the beer over. We're going to take a look, and we'll take a look and maybe look at my some of my concerns. This is Mikkeller. It is called Texas Ranger, but it is their Chipotle Porter, an ale brewed with Chipotle chili. 6.6% alcohol, and that is the part that kind of worries me, because this is from 2015. Not sure when, but it's from 2015. That's 10 years old. 6.6% alcohol is, that might not be enough, but we will see. And either way, we're going to take a look and a little bit at some Chipotle. But the interesting thing about Mikkeller, they are headquartered in Copenhagen in Denmark, but they're basically, I can't remember what the term is now. I think back in the day it was called an orphan brewery, where you didn't have a specific brewery of your own. So you would go and collaborate with various other breweries. Does it say? I know who they... Okay, yeah, here we go. Brewed and bottled by Mikkeller at De Prof Brouwerij in Belgium. So they, even though they're a Danish brewing company, they do a lot of their work elsewhere. So let's get in and let's... well, that's something interesting. I just busted my bottle opener. Hang on a minute. I dare say that's one of the craziest things that's ever happened. I've never actually had a bottle opener like that bust. But that doesn't bode well for the beer. Well, maybe. Hey, alright, we got the cap off. Well, let's see. Okay. Okay. The smell's not bad. It's very, very mild. I do smell some of that Chipotle taste. We've got our, I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but it used to be just called like an English pint glass with the little flare out in the upper lip there. It does have a different name, but I'll put it up. It'll be in the description, but let's go. We have a 6.5%, 6.6% porter brewed with Chipotle. Well, I have to say, it looks beautiful. Smells kind of nice. All right, so it does not look like we have to bust into the backup beer, so we're going to take a pause, flip this around, and we'll start BSing for a little bit. I legitimately cannot believe that the bottle opener snapped. Like, I know it's not the highest quality of materials. I mean, you can definitely tell that... it's not, but, I mean, still, like, it was still metal that just snapped like that. The strangeness of anytime I try to do anything on this channel, it's so weird. But, so let's go, let's take a smell. The Chipotle Porter, smell-wise, really not much. Let's move some of the foam. Slightly roasted coffee. That's about it. Slightly roasted coffee. That's all I'm getting, really. Some chocolate. Again, it's one of those, it's a blind taste test. If I didn't know what it was, definitely couldn't have told you that it was any sort of Chipotle porter. Or, well, I mean, porter definitely, I would have got that, but would not have been able to tell you there was any peppers or anything in there. But let's take a swig, and then we'll go from there. Otherwise, I might be flipping it back, and we might be hitting another one, but we'll see. Fingers crossed, at least. Okay. Taste-wise, we're good. What do we got? There's actually a little bit of chili spice at the end. But it's predominantly, like that roasted coffee bitterness, some dark chocolate, some dark fruits, and then a little bit of chili spice at the end. That's interesting, though. And again, held up well. I do have another version of this, but it's in a smaller bottle. This one's in the 750. Which, yeah, I'll be finishing off the rest of this during the movie over at Singularity Digital Art. I wanted to look at it because, it's talking about Chipotle peppers. Now, I mean, Chipotle peppers, as we know, are basically just smoked red jalapenos. And jalapenos are the ones that most Americans especially are probably the most familiar with, the good old jalapeno pepper. It's kind of like the baseline for talking about spice and the Scoville heat units and all that. But basically, the longer you leave the pepper on the vine is when it gets red. The green jalapenos we all see are the unripe ones. They're picked early, and they tend to be on the whole less hot than Chipotles, which the longer they age on the vine, they turn red and the heat is concentrated. So that's why when you see on the Scoville heat unit scales that jalapenos go from 2,500 up to like 8,000, 8,500. The 8,500 and closer to that ones are usually going to be the more aged, the more red jalapenos. Now, I bring that up because you often look at, especially in this day and age, with shows like Hot Ones and all that stuff, with people eating like substantially spicier things. You get up into the 3 million Scoville heat unit peppers. Those are the peppers that are basically being grown in a lab, purpose-bred, cross-bred. One of the big ones in the U.S. is a guy by the name of Ed Curry. He either still is or was at the time at a company, I think in North Carolina, called Pucker Butt Hot Sauces, and he was creating different peppers. I think he created the Pepper X, which is supposedly like 2 times the Scoville heat rating of a Carolina Reaper. Now, the reason I bring that up is because, people always talk about when they get it, like, oh, this pepper's so spicy, this so spicy. Well, is it really spicy? I've often thought about that. And peppers, for those people that don't know, get their spice in nature through a chemical compound by the name of capsaicin. It's the same stuff they use for like hot sauce additives, the pure form of it, the same stuff they use in like pepper spray and things like that because it is quite potent. And basically that resides predominantly in the seeds of the peppers, and it's their defense mechanism. It's to prevent birds especially and other animals from eating the peppers. Now, the weird thing is humans don't taste spice per se. Like what we taste when we eat something spicy, and or drink something spicy, even though the Chipotles are so mild, it's not really that spicy anymore. If it ever really was, I never had it fresh. We'll get a little bit down there. But you know how we taste things like sweet, salt, bitter, tart, etc., etc. We don't taste spicy because really what's happening is we're not tasting anything. The simple fact of the matter is we're being poisoned. Because capsaicin is essentially an oil-based irritant, which is why it's so preferred in things like pepper spray and all that, because it's very effective. And basically, because of the capsaicin in there, it irritates the mouth of us because we're not designed as a species to handle it, and it triggers it in our brain, and our brain knows this is something we don't want to eat, so it responds by sending the sensation of pain because of quote-unquote spice. That's why it tastes like it's burning, because it's your body telling you to get it out of your mouth because essentially you're being poisoned a little. And then that's all part of why if you eat a lot of spicy things or see people eat a lot of spicy things, they look legitimately high because, one, there's that the adrenaline rush and then the adrenaline dump following. You have that massive endorphin rush, And then at the same time, you also have the fact that you're being mildly poisoned. And that, I told you that story to tell you this one because at the close of yesterday's episode, I talked about how, I'd also be talking about absinthe. And we've all heard the stories. Absinthe, it's the wormwood, it's hallucinogenic, it makes you see things. That's why Van Gogh, or however you want to pronounce his name, that's why he cut off his ear. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I wanted to take a look very quickly at absinthe and the fact of, is it hallucinogenic or is it toxic? Do they use wormwood in it? And the answer is yes. They do use wormwood in it. They used it back then. They still use it in absinthe today. And there are still quite a few countries that produce absinthe on the regular. The Czech Republic makes quite a lot. France makes quite a lot. I think Poland may make some, and I know the United States makes some. But it's wormwood itself, the wood that they use to extract, the flavor or part of the flavor of absinthe, it's thujone, Thujone, and that is a toxic compound to humans. Ultimately, that can lead to neurotoxicity and can lead to people having convulsions, which, in the old days, they simply diagnosed it wrong. They thought it was some sort of psychotic episode, and they deemed that it was hallucinogenic, but in reality it wasn't. Again, people were basically poisoning themselves. And, like I say, and I do like me some absinthe. I have had absinthe. There's an absinthe bar in New Orleans. I have had it from a couple different countries. It is quite nice. It is a very weird acquired taste. If you don't like licorice, just never try absinthe. You're not going to like it because it's pure anise. That's all it is. And like I say, it's a divisive flavor. You either like it or you don't. So it's not going to be one of those like, oh, you can handle it. No, it's you're either going to or you cannot. But the fact is, they still use wormwood when they distill absinthe today. The only thing is, nowadays, the amount of thujone, I think that's how it's pronounced actually, the compound in wormwood that is toxic, is very heavily and very stringently regulated to prevent anything weird from happening. However, it still is in to a certain degree. Now on to the final piece of business for the evening. We're actually going to have a little bit more of our Chipotle Porter on camera, but again, this sucker's getting polished off later as I finish watching the movie at Singularity Digital Art. Shout out to him once again. Just have another little sip, and then we're going to do another VR, because I had some good fun doing it for Pastor Ken, last week with the dad jokes, and this is going to be something along those lines. You'll see it in a moment. Pardon me, pause for the cause. The cause being, I want to drink this. Very, very nice. Very nice. Had Porter in my mustache. Now, I've got it written down because, especially these videos, you got to pay attention. The Card Closet has hit 1,000 subs, which is awesome. A very big milestone. Congratulations to him. And he is asking for a VR. And it's an interesting VR, and it's a really cool prize. It's a 1952 Ted Williams hand-cut Red Man chewing tobacco card. But it's a very interesting VR in that he wants you to show 1, 2, 3, just a couple of cards. But the cards have to be where the player's name is a sentence. Now, this is a really fascinating one, and I like this because I'm a big fan of, player cards and players with interesting names. But this is interesting, so I thought about it, and there's a couple examples out there. I know the Card Closet himself used it when he was talking about his friend Pete and doing something, and then, to get everybody's attention, Pete Rose. So it's going to be stuff along those lines. So I thought there's a couple that I went through quickly and found, and I figured this would be the absolute best way to do it, because we're going to end it with some good humor and some little thought-provoking things. So, like, I know I used to go to Vegas a lot, and you go out there, you meet up with some of your buddies. My buddy Marcus out there, although that wasn't, it's not what he went by. You always knew if you ever lost him, you always had to go to the tables, because when Marcus, our boy Mookie, when he was in Vegas, where would he go and what would he be doing? Well, wait, it's over here. I forgot where I'm doing. You see, Mookie bets. Now you see exactly what we're going for. So we've got one right there. And then I was talking about a buddy Barry of mine. And whenever there's any sort of conflict, any sort of meetings, any sort of whatnot going on, where you need to try to bring people together, you got to get my buddy Barry involved, because, and why is that? Quite simply because Barry Bonds. Come on. You're loving him. Barry Bonds. But the final one, and then I'm going to close off with just a very strange and interesting thought to let you continue on the rest of your weekend. We talk, and in Vegas, I know a couple times, actually, this is an actual true part of a story. A couple times when I've been out in Vegas, they've been having, like, the dodgeball conventions out there. It's like, but, they were always saying, you gotta have my buddy Steve. You gotta have my buddy Steve when you play dodgeball. It's like, why? Is he, like, a sniper? Has he got, good aim? It's like, nah, can't throw the ball worth anything. Can't catch anything, but you know what Steve does? Steve shields. So there you go. That is my little shout out in VR to the Card Closet. Congratulations on 1,000 subs. And looking forward to seeing a couple more of these going around out there. I know, who just put one out there that I saw recently? I think Adam's Card Closet just put one out there. But link to the Card Closet and a link to the video will be down below. And that's going to do it for another Beer and a BS. That's a fun one. Let's see. Can I tease what is coming up next weekend? Probably. Actually, yes, I can. I actually have notes written down. So basically, coming up next weekend, or next week, next Friday, it's going to be, if all goes well and according to plan, it will be the oldest beer that I have had up to this point. It will be, it will be 2000, it will be 18 years old at this point. And we'll see how that one will go. And then I'm going to talk about a defunct NFL franchise that most people probably have never heard of, but was quite important as it was one of the founding members of the NFL in 1920. So that's going to do it, and I am going to leave you with this parting thought. And let me know what you thought of everything down below, and this and that. Did you know that, and this actually goes back to the mail day yesterday from John Burgess when he was talking about language in that really funny letter that he sent me. You know that even if a balloon is half inflated, it's technically full. Think about that. Have a good night, everybody.